when we went on the air, we got the smallest budget I ever saw in my life. And Steve and I are partners, and we're taking the same fee out of the show. He is the producer and me as the MC. We're taking the same fee, very small, small fee. And the show was coming in under budget, and we're getting terrific ratings. And I go to see Herb Schlosser, who I had met, and he's now the West Coast head of NBC. And I get an appointment with him. I said, Herb, we're going to our fourth year. We have been a tremendous hit, and we're working for peanuts. I think we deserve tear up the contract and give us a real good contract. And Herb says, we got you for 5 years. You got 2 more years to go. See me at the end of 2 more years. I'm very disappointed. When you've got a hit show, I wish I had a show like to be able to walk in like Friends and shows that are on the air today as we talk now, where you go to the network and you say each of the characters wants $1 million an episode, and Steve and I are working for 2 grapes and a peanut, and the head of the network says, I'll see you in 2 years. Well, in our 5th year, it's time to start negotiating. Fred Silverman was at CBS, and he wanted to talk to us, but Stanton, the head of CBS, told Silverman, no game shows. And that's all there is to it. But Elton Rule calls me from New York with Ed Vane, a very good friend of mine, who was at NBC in the old days. He says, anytime you'd like to talk to us, we'd like to talk to you. I said, we'll see you later, because by contract, we can't talk to anybody until a certain period of time. We can't talk. But when that time comes, if we're not satisfied with NBC, I'll come and talk to you. Now, the negotiations start with NBC, and this is a lesson for all negotiators for years to come, how not to negotiate a renewal of a contract. And I'm talking now not as a negotiator, I'm talking as the negotiatee. We've got a hit show. The negotiator comes out to the West Coast, and he meets us in Jimmy Saffier's office. And we're sitting and talking, and he's talking to us as if we are a couple of kids just came off the street who are trying to sell an idea for the first time, instead of shows in its 5th year of a tremendous success, which really changed things around for NBC daytime. We're talking, and Jimmy Saffier is just sitting and listening, and Steve and I are looking at each other, and I said, I don't think we have anything to talk about, because you're talking about figures, about giving us a crumb, and I think we have, as Herb Schlosser said, come and see me. I said, we're now in the 5th year, and we're coming to see you. And he comes and sees us a second time. And I'm not quite sure about the timing on this, but I do remember this. That he comes out and he's meeting Jimmy Saffier at my country club. I am at a charity meeting in another side of the country club, and this negotiator is with Jimmy Saffier in another room. And it's the day after Bobby Kennedy was assassinated in the hotel here in Los Angeles. I finish my charity meeting, and I come to see what's happening, because now it's September, we're getting to the short strokes now. And I walk in, and this negotiator turns to me and he says, you have my sympathy. Sympathy? Yeah, because you're just going to blow this whole deal. You have my sympathy. And I said to him, enraged, save your sympathy for the Kennedy family today. I don't need your sympathy. And I turned on my heels and I walked away. and I flew to New York. Now, Jimmy Safir was very friendly with General Sarnoff. He didn't want to see us leave NBC. I fly to New York, and Elton Rule and Ed Vane meet me in Elton's office. And Elton pulls up on his desk, pulls out a checkbook, puts it on his desk. He says, "Fill in the amount." Well, of course, I'd love to have filled out some great amount, but I looked at him, I said, "It's lovely to be able to talk to somebody like this." I left him and I went and had a luncheon was prepared for me at NBC on the same trip to New York, up in the executive dining room. And I go up there in the executive dining room. I wish I had the film on this, because I'm showing you how not to negotiate. I go upstairs in the executive dining room, and I am being treated whimsically like the head of an Arab nation who just came in from, Qatar or some emirate country. They're treating me with all, but really not meaning a damn thing. And I'm trying to figure out, what are they trying to say to me? They're playing me like a violin, except it's not in tune. And I'm not listening to this tune. And I tell them I'm not listening to this tune. And as we walk out after luncheon, Larry White, who had flown up to go for this luncheon, says to me, "You're a son of a bitch, but you're a clever son of a bitch, because I wasn't going for this tune at all." In other words, putting on the big luncheon for me was supposed to impress me. But I'm not impressionable. I've worked for almost 5 years in this vineyard with tremendous success and never got the respect and never got the offer. NBC kept offering us a little bit more each time we met. Elton Rule was opening up a checkbook. I fly back to the West Coast. I tell Steve all about these meetings. I tell Jimmy Safir about these meetings. And I said, "Jimmy, we're going with ABC." He said, "Are you sure you guys want to do it? ABC has nothing. It's a network." He said, no daytime at all. You'll die there." And I said, "I'm not so sure." Dean Craig was working at NBC Local at that time, under Larry White, I think. And Dean Craig called me at home. He says, "Monty, you're not going to go to that network across the street, that second-rate network." And I remember my words, I said, "Dean, if the woman you're living with, your wife you're living with, isn't treating you very well, the hussy across the street starts looking pretty good to you." Well, the hussy across the street is looking good to me right now, because they've offered me a lot more than what NBC is offering. General Sarnoff calls Jimmy Safir. And Jimmy says, "Don't worry, the boys won't leave you. The boys. And Steve and I are called the boys." We get Jimmy on the phone and said, "Jimmy, you don't understand. We're going to leave because this is just no good at all." And then Jimmy realized that we're going to leave. Now it's down to the day, and Jimmy's busy with both phones with ABC and NBC, and he's going crazy because he realizes we're serious. And NBC starts coming up a little bit more, but they're still nowhere near. ABC was offering us nighttime in the summertime, and they were offering us all kinds of inducements to me personally and so on. And NBC was really not just offering us a 5%, 10%, 50% increase. They started to get a little desperate, a little 20%. But they're here, and ABC's up here with all kind of inducements for me on the side. That's it. You can call both networks right now and tell them we've made up our mind. We're going to ABC. This caused a tremendous amount of activity in NBC's halls. I remember the phone calls were going back and forth. Now, I would like to tell you that, as you know, that on January the 1st of the next year, when the contract was up, we went from a network that had, let's say, a 33 share to ABC that had a 10 or 12 share. And the next week, the ratings were exactly reversed. ABC got the 33 share in that noon period, and NBC dropped down like that. Calamitous. We were tremendous heroes. Bob Eubanks to this day thanks me for his farm, for his ranch, because I brought his show up, and all the shows following me all came up in the ratings, and they were renewed, and they did all well. You ask Eubanks today, he'll tell you, thank you for my ranch. I would like to tell you that 18 people got fired at NBC. No, nobody got fired at NBC, because they all just walked away from it as if nothing had happened. And yet it was calamity. The millions of dollars they lost in billings, and nobody lost a job. Nothing changed. But that's the way they negotiated. And that's why they lost their daytime and never recovered.